Frank Sinatra was halfway through Fly Me to the Moon when he saw his assistant running toward the stage. Danny Schwartz never interrupted a performance. Never. The fact that he was sprinting through the wings meant something was catastrophically wrong. Frank kept singing, but his eyes were locked on Danny. Danny was holding a phone. His face was white. His hands were shaking. He was mouthing something. Frank couldn't make out the words, but he saw Nancy's name. Frank stopped singing mid-verse. The orchestra faltered. The audience of 1,200 people at the Call Neva Lodge went silent. Frank set the microphone down and walked off stage without a word. "What happened?" Frank asked, his voice ice cold. Danny's voice cracked. "Frank, someone called the house. They said they have Nancy." The world stopped. Everything stopped. Frank's heart, his breath, time itself. "What do you mean they have Nancy?" "They said they kidnapped her. They want money. They want to talk to you." Frank grabbed the phone from Danny's hand. His daughter Nancy was 19 years old. She was supposed to be at her apartment in Los Angeles. Safe. But she wasn't safe. Someone had taken her, and now they were on the phone. Waiting. Frank lifted the phone to his ear. His hand wasn't shaking. His voice was steady. Deadly steady. "This is Frank Sinatra." The voice on the other end was calm. Too calm. "Mr. Sinatra, we have your daughter Nancy. If you want to see her again, you'll do exactly what we say." "Where is she?" "She's safe. For now. But that can change very quickly if you don't cooperate." "Let me talk to her." "That's not how this works." "Let me talk to her, or I hang up right now and you get nothing." There was a pause. Then Frank heard it. His daughter's voice. Scared. Crying. "Dad? Nancy, baby, are you hurt?" "Dad, I'm scared. They put me in a—" The voice came back. "That's enough. Now you know she's alive. Here's what happens next. We want $240,000. Cash. Small bills. You have 24 hours to get it together. We'll call you tomorrow night with instructions. If you involve the police, if you involve the FBI, if you do anything except exactly what we tell you, Nancy dies. Do you understand?" Frank's jaw tightened. "I understand." "Good. Wait for our call." The line went dead. Frank stood there holding the phone. Danny was staring at him. "Frank, we need to call the FBI. We need to—" "No. Frank, this is a kidnapping. Federal crime. The FBI has protocols for this. They can help." "I said no. Frank, please. Nancy's life is at stake. We can't handle this alone." Frank turned to Danny. His eyes were cold, hard. "Listen to me very carefully. We are not calling the FBI. We are not calling the police. We are handling this my way. Do you understand?" "But Frank, do you understand?" Danny nodded slowly. "Good. Now get me Hank Sanacola. Get me Dean. Get me everyone I trust, and find out where Nancy was when they took her." Danny ran off. Frank stood alone in the wings of the stage. He could hear the confused murmuring of the audience, the band waiting, the show that had stopped. But Frank didn't care about any of that. His daughter was in the hands of criminals, men who would kill her if something went wrong, men who thought they could threaten Frank Sinatra's family and get away with it. They were wrong. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Within an hour, Frank's house in Palm Springs was filled with people. Hank Sanacola, Frank's manager and oldest friend. Dean Martin. Jilly Rizzo, Frank's bodyguard. A few others Frank trusted completely. They sat in Frank's living room. Nobody was drinking. Nobody was joking. This wasn't a party. This was war. "Okay," Hank said. "We know Nancy was taken from her apartment around 6 p.m. Her roommate came home and found the place ransacked. Nancy was gone. No sign of struggle in the hallway, so they probably had a weapon. Probably multiple guys." "How many?" Frank asked. Roommate said she saw a van parked outside earlier. Could be 2 guys. Could be 5. We don't know. Dean spoke up. Frank, I know you don't want to hear this, but Hank's right. We should call the FBI. They handle kidnappings. They have resources. Frank shook his head. No FBI. Why not? Because the FBI has rules, protocols. They'll want to negotiate. They'll want to set up surveillance. They'll want to do everything by the book. And while they're doing all that, Nancy's sitting in some basement with a gun to her head. So what's your plan? Jilly asked. Frank lit a cigarette. My plan is simple. They want money. I give them money. They give me Nancy. Then I find them, and I make sure they never do this to anyone else. Frank, if you pay the ransom, there's no guarantee they'll let her go. Then I make them guarantee it. How? Frank looked around the room. These guys think they're in control because they have Nancy. But they're not in control. I am. They need money. That means they need me. That means I have leverage. What kind of leverage? The kind where I tell them that if anything happens to Nancy, I will spend every dollar I have, every connection I have, every ounce of power I have to hunt them down. And when I find them, the FBI will be the least of their worries. The room was silent. Everyone knew Frank meant it. Before we continue, I'm curious. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Let's see how far this story has traveled. The next day, Frank did something the FBI later said was incredibly dangerous and incredibly smart at the same time. He held a press conference. Reporters from every major news outlet showed up. They'd heard rumors about Nancy's disappearance. Now Frank was going to address it. Frank stood at a podium. No notes, no prepared statement. Just Frank and a microphone. Yesterday, my daughter Nancy was kidnapped. The kidnappers have contacted me. They want money. I'm going to pay it. But I want to say something directly to the men who took my daughter. Frank looked straight into the cameras. You made a mistake. You think you're in control because you have my daughter. But you're not. I'm in control. Here's why. If you hurt Nancy, if you do anything to her, I will find you. Not the police. Not the FBI. Me. And when I find you, you'll wish you'd never heard the name Sinatra. But if you return Nancy safely, if you take the money and disappear, I'll let you go. I won't pursue you. I won't hunt you down. You'll have your money and your freedom. That's the deal. Your choice. The press conference ended. Reporters were stunned. The FBI was furious. Special Agent John Douglas, who was monitoring the case, called Frank immediately. Mr. Sinatra, what the hell were you thinking? You just told kidnappers you won't cooperate with law enforcement. You just gave them a free pass. That's exactly what I did. Do you understand that you're obstructing a federal investigation? I understand that my daughter's life is more important than your investigation. Mr. Sinatra, we have protocols for kidnappings, protocols that save lives. Your protocols take time. I don't have time. Nancy doesn't have time. If you pay this ransom without our involvement, you're setting a precedent. Every criminal in America will think they can kidnap a celebrity's kid and get paid. Frank's voice was cold. Then let them think that. And when they do, they'll have to deal with me. Agent Douglas tried a different approach. Mr. Sinatra, I know you're scared. I know you want your daughter back. But please, let us help. We have agents ready. We have equipment. We can track the ransom drop. We can get Nancy back safely and arrest these men. And if something goes wrong, if they see your agents, if they panic, we're professionals. We know what we're doing. So do I. Frank hung up. That night, the kidnappers called again. Same voice, same calm tone. Mr. Sinatra, we saw your press conference. Very dramatic. Did you hear what I said? We heard. And we appreciate your cooperation. Here's what happens next. Tomorrow night, you'll bring the money to a location we'll provide. You come alone. No FBI, no police, no bodyguards. Just you and the money. We'll make the exchange. You get Nancy. We get paid. Everyone goes home happy. How do I know you'll actually release her? You don't. That's called faith, Mr. Sinatra. You have faith in us. We have faith that you meant what you said about not pursuing us. I meant it. But only if Nancy comes home safe. She will, as long as you follow instructions. What's the location? We'll call you tomorrow at 8 p.m. with the address. Be ready. The line went dead. Frank spent the next day gathering the money. $240,000 in small bills. It filled 3 large suitcases. He didn't tell the FBI where he was going. He didn't tell anyone except Hank and Dean. And he made them promise to stay behind. This is something I have to do alone, Frank said. Frank, you can't go alone, Dean argued. These guys could kill you and take the money. They won't kill me. They need me to not pursue them. If they kill me, every law enforcement agency in the country will hunt them forever. They're smarter than that. And if they're not, then I guess I'll find out. At 8 p.m., the phone rang. Frank answered. Mr. Sinatra, here's the address. The voice gave him a location in the Nevada desert, an abandoned gas station 50 miles outside of Las Vegas. Be there in 2 hours. Alone. If we see anyone else, Nancy dies. I'll be there. Frank loaded the suitcases into his car. He drove into the desert alone. No FBI, no backup. Just Frank Sinatra and 3 suitcases full of cash. Driving into the darkness to save his daughter. The abandoned gas station was exactly where they said it would be. Middle of nowhere. No lights, no other cars. Just an old building falling apart in the desert. Frank pulled up and turned off his engine. He sat in the dark, waiting. 5 minutes later, headlights appeared. A van pulled up 20 feet away. 2 men got out. They were wearing masks. One of them had a gun. Mr. Sinatra, step out of the car, slowly. Frank got out. Where's Nancy? She's safe. Show us the money. Frank opened his trunk. The 3 suitcases were there. Open them. Frank opened each suitcase. Stacks of cash. The 2 men walked over and inspected the money. One of them started loading the suitcases into the van. The other kept his gun pointed at Frank. Okay, Mr. Sinatra. Your daughter is in the back of the van. We're going to leave. You wait 5 minutes before you move. If you follow us, she dies. Understand? I understand. But before you go, I want to say something. The man with the gun tensed. What? I meant what I said at the press conference. You return Nancy safely. I let this go. But if I ever hear that you did this to someone else, if I ever hear your names again in connection with any crime, the deal is off. And I will find you. The man laughed. You don't even know who we are. Frank smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. I know more than you think. The 2 men got in the van and drove off. Frank waited. 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. Then he walked to where the van had been parked. There was a figure sitting on the ground. Nancy. Frank ran to her. She was tied up, blindfolded, but alive. Nancy, it's me. It's Dad. You're safe. He untied her, pulled off the blindfold. Nancy collapsed into his arms, crying. Dad, I was so scared. I thought they were going to kill me. They're gone now. You're safe. I've got you. Frank held his daughter in the middle of the desert. The money was gone. But Nancy was alive. That's all that mattered. If you're still with me, let me know where you're watching from. Comment your location below. I love seeing how global our audience is. Frank drove Nancy to a hospital. She was dehydrated, bruised, but otherwise unharmed. The FBI showed up within an hour. Agent Douglas walked into Nancy's hospital room. Frank was sitting next to her bed. Mr. Sinatra, we need to talk. Not now. Yes, now. You paid the ransom. You got your daughter back. That's good. But you also let 2 kidnappers walk away with $250,000. They're going to do this again. No, they're not. How can you be so sure? Frank stood up and walked Agent Douglas out into the hallway. I'm sure because I recorded the entire exchange. Agent Douglas's eyes widened. You what? I had a recording device in my car. I recorded their voices. I recorded their van's license plate with a camera I had hidden in my trunk. I have everything you need to find them. You've had this the whole time? I told you I'd handle it my way. Now you can handle it yours. Agent Douglas took the recordings. Within 48 hours, the FBI identified the kidnappers. Barry Keenan and Joe Amsler. 2 small-time criminals who thought kidnapping Nancy Sinatra would be easy money. They were wrong. The FBI tracked them to a motel in Los Angeles. They were arrested without incident. The money was recovered, all of it. During the trial, Frank testified. The prosecutor asked him, Mr. Sinatra, why didn't you cooperate with the FBI from the beginning? Frank looked at the jury. Because my daughter's life was more important than following protocol. The FBI wanted to do things by the book, but kidnappers don't read books. They respond to one thing: power. I showed them I had power. I showed them I could give them what they wanted. And I showed them that if they crossed me, I could destroy them. That's not in any FBI manual. But it worked. The courtroom was silent. The prosecutor continued. Do you regret paying the ransom? No. Even though it could encourage other kidnappings? Frank leaned forward. If someone kidnaps your daughter, you'd pay too. You'd do whatever it takes to get her back. And then, after she's safe, you'd make sure those people face justice. That's what I did. I got Nancy back. Then I gave the FBI everything they needed to arrest the kidnappers. Both things happened. Nancy's alive, and the criminals are in prison. That's not a failure. That's a success. Barry Keenan was sentenced to life in prison. Joe Amsler got 25 years. The money was returned to Frank. Nancy recovered. She went on to have a successful music career. She never spoke publicly about the kidnapping for years. But in 1998, she finally gave an interview about it. My father saved my life, Nancy said. Not just by paying the ransom, but by being smart about it. He didn't panic. He didn't let fear control him. He took control. And because of that, I'm here today. The interviewer asked, Were you angry that he paid the ransom? Some people said he should have let the FBI handle it. Nancy shook her head. I was 19 years old. I was tied up in a basement. I didn't know if I was going to live or die. And my father did whatever it took to bring me home. How could I ever be angry about that? What did your father say to you after it was over? Nancy smiled. He told me he loved me. And he told me that no amount of money in the world was worth more than my life. Then he made me promise I'd never put myself in danger again. Did you keep that promise? I tried. But my father was Frank Sinatra. Danger kind of followed our family around. After Nancy's kidnapping, Frank changed. He became more protective, more careful. He hired more security. He made sure his family was always watched, always safe. But he also became more vocal about crime, about the need for stronger laws, about the need to protect victims. In 1964, Frank testified before Congress about kidnapping laws. He advocated for harsher sentences, for better victim support, for more resources for law enforcement. Criminals need to know that if they target families, they will face the full weight of the justice system, Frank told the committee. But families also need to know that if the worst happens, they can do whatever it takes to save their loved ones without being criticized. The laws changed. Kidnapping penalties increased. Victim protection improved. And Frank never stopped advocating for those changes until the day he died. If you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button. We're building a community of people who love untold history, and I don't want you to miss the next one. Years later, a reporter asked Frank if he ever regretted not following FBI protocol during Nancy's kidnapping. Frank thought about it for a moment. You know what I regret? I regret that it happened at all. I regret that my daughter had to go through that trauma. I regret that 2 criminals thought they could get away with it. But do I regret how I handled it? No. I made a choice. I chose my daughter's life over everything else. And I'd make that same choice again. Every time. Even if it meant letting the kidnappers go. I didn't let them go. I got Nancy back first. Then I made sure they were caught. Both things happened. That's what people don't understand. You can save someone and pursue justice. They're not mutually exclusive. But you took a risk. What if the kidnappers had killed Nancy anyway? Frank's face hardened. Then I would have hunted them for the rest of my life, and they would have learned that kidnapping Frank Sinatra's daughter was the biggest mistake they ever made. That's the real story of Nancy Sinatra's kidnapping. It's not about Frank being a hero. It's not about him defying the FBI. It's about a father who loved his daughter more than he loved following rules. Frank Sinatra spent his entire career being told what to do, how to sing, what to wear, who to work with. And he spent his entire career ignoring those rules when they didn't make sense. That's what made him Frank Sinatra. That's what made him legendary. But on December 8, 1963, in the middle of the Nevada desert, Frank wasn't being legendary. He wasn't being defiant. He was just being a father who would give everything to save his daughter, a father who would face down criminals without backup, a father who would break every rule if it meant bringing his child home safely. And he did. Nancy came home. The criminals were caught. Justice was served, not because Frank followed protocol, but because Frank knew that sometimes love is more important than rules. Sometimes you have to break the system to save what matters most. Sometimes you have to be willing to walk into the darkness alone. That's courage, not the kind that's planned or calculated, but the kind that says, "This is my daughter, and I will do whatever it takes." Frank Sinatra sang a lot of songs about love, about devotion, about sacrifice. But the greatest expression of those themes wasn't on any stage. It was in that desert, with 3 suitcases full of cash and a daughter waiting to come home. That's the story. That's the truth. That's the night Frank Sinatra proved that being a father means more than being a star, that protecting your family means more than protecting your reputation. That love means more than money. December 8, 1963, the night Nancy Sinatra was kidnapped, the night Frank Sinatra walked into the desert alone, the night a father brought his daughter home, and the night the world learned that you don't mess with Frank Sinatra's family. Ever.